So I'm Mark Waters here with Earlene Busch in advance of the Startup Canada Town Hall in Sydney. And I first wanted to ask you, Earlene, why are you passionate about entrepreneurship? Why did you choose to become an entrepreneur?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that anybody chooses to be one. I come by it honestly because my parents definitely were, and so you grow up in that kind of try to make it happen atmosphere, and that's how it happens. And says as you simply, as an entrepreneur, you simply see connections, see a need, and then think to yourself, can I make it happen?
Absolutely, and that's wonderful. And we are seeing a lot of that. It's the go-getter attitude of the entrepreneur when they see an opportunity that makes it real. Now, I've noticed that in terms of some of the stuff you're doing in the area, you've got a real sort of push on the idea of sustainable entrepreneurship and supporting people locally. And I was wondering if you could talk about, why you believe in that. Why it's so important to do.
Well, as I say, I'm a grandmother. And when I think about what kind of a world I would like to leave for my grandchildren, that's what gives me, quote, the passion. Because I want to be in a position to say to them, I gave it my best shot. And yes, and then there's the other aspect of it, which is frankly a very personal, very gratifying one, is that people love it. Our guests, I have an inn, the Chanterelle Inn, and our guests appreciate the effort that we go through to get local and organically grown food. Actually, one of my goals was, or is still, to make Cape Breton a culinary destination, and I think it's very possible. It isn't France, it isn't Italy, but it does have its own unique food culture, and it's fun playing around with those ingredients and seeing the satisfaction that it brings to guests.
Absolutely, and I think that's a wonderfully ambitious goal, and I like to see entrepreneurs with that bigger vision. You also mentioned though that you have grandchildren that you want to leave a great world for. Would you like to see them become entrepreneurs of all the choices they have available? Do you think that it's a great career choice for them?
Well, they probably are will be, just simply because my daughter is, and she has that make it happen attitude, and so they're growing up with that as well.
Absolutely, and do you think that you obviously know a lot of local entrepreneurs in the area, local growers. Do you see that there are any common challenges that entrepreneurs are facing that we're not doing a good enough job to address right now?
Well, there's always the financing. That is, one of the greatest challenges, and there's just a little bit too much reliance on the government. I feel strongly that the government should not be the lender of first resort, although I have personally benefited greatly from the assistance of ECBC and ECOA. But I think that the lender of first resort should be the banks, with the government underwriting some of those, because that way the interest that's generated from a loan gets plowed back into the community to fund more opportunities. Then second, of course, there's, especially in the food area, there are tremendous regulations that perhaps could be, and I think, frankly, are being changed to support more local consumption of food. And then, of course, a community always has to be on the lookout for the invasion of very large companies. I am just concerned about a third Walmart being brought to this area, because all of that money goes to the U.S. And then there's also the food service companies. That money goes to the U.S. At least Sobeys and Loblaws. Sobeys, of course, is Nova Scotian, and Loblaws is Canadian. but at least the money stays here.
Absolutely. And that is a really important issue that I actually would like to follow up on with you. We do see, I think, a lot of major firms coming in. We heard earlier in an interview today the same issue. The money's going to big firms. Big firms are here. They create some jobs, and then they often leave. And they've displaced local businesses before doing that, which then can't recover. And I'm wondering, how do you think that how do we combat this issue? And it's an important one.
Well, frankly, the entire community should support their local first, and if a new a store or business opens up, everyone should be thinking, I'm going to go patronize that store. It may cost them a few more cents up front, but in the long run, they would build a very interesting community. I was not too long ago, well, it was actually more, in Burlington, Vermont. And it's a beautiful community because they do not, or at least at that time, they did not allow big box stores. Everything was local. Every restaurant, every grocery store, and it just made for a very unique, beautiful community. And it could happen here.
Absolutely. And so on that issue then, which is obviously critically important, who is responsible then, who can lend a hand in communicating to the local community about a new business that's formed so we can then attract attention and get people going there, as opposed to some of the big box alternatives? Is there a particular role in the community that can be played, and who should be helping out with that?
Well, one of the little newspapers in Cape Breton that I love is the Inverness Oran, and they very much support their local businesses and opportunities, and it makes for community. But then, of course, I love CBC Radio, and they're great for their information warning. Is great for letting people know what's going on in the community, but it just has to be an attitude change to not be so concerned about the pennies on the front end, but the long-term viability of a community.
Absolutely, and that's the message then. So it's that you may spend a little bit more up front, but you're securing your community's long-term future, and that message we've got to communicate. So the last question I'd like to ask you then is if you could leave a parting message for young entrepreneurs to inspire them to get involved, to choose entrepreneurship, what would that be?
Well, the greatest hurdle I think that an entrepreneur has to overcome is believing in themselves. So it's just thing, if you see something that could be done, trust yourself and try it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Earlene, for taking the time to meet with us. Really appreciate that.